All right, folks, welcome. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Emmett. I'm the announcer here. Just wanted to introduce Mike Guthrie. Mike Guthrie is the lead developer at Nagios Enterprises and has developed new features and add-ons for Nagios Core, Nagios XI, and Nagios Fusion. So go ahead, give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. I think based on the few sessions I'm seeing in attendance, I think it's corporate nap time all around. I'm wondering, as we're on day 3 here, but it's a small group, so we should have room for discussion at the end if you guys want to talk about stuff too. So what we're going to talk about today is Nagios Fusion 2012 specifically. Nagios Fusion came out back in 2010. It was just a very basic central dashboard for viewing multiple Nagios servers, whether they are Nagios XI or Nagios Core. The initial release was fairly limited in its feature set. It just basically combined tactical overviews from all the Nagios servers and provided a unified way to log into any of the servers. So for the XI servers, when you logged into Fusion, you are automatically logged into XI. And then for the core servers, if you wanted to drill down and see more details in any of the core servers, it was just a one-time basic authentication for the core servers. We had several different discussions with different customers in the last year, and one demo that we were doing in particular, we were discussing with a customer, and they proposed several different ideas with Fusion, and Ethan and I got to talking about where we could take it. And for me personally, this is probably my favorite project to work on, actually, because I'm very much a front-end and a user interface developer, and I love doing data visualizations. And so for me, Fusion is by far my favorite project to work on. And so the goals of Nagios Fusion is to act as a central looking glass for all of your Nagios servers. The idea being, if you wanted to have 2, 3, 4, even 10 or more Nagios servers, you can do that, and you can tie them all together and see aggregations of all that information in one place. It's a read-only view, and so, but it basically just it pulls the data, it brings it all into one place. So if you have to manage multiple Nagios servers in some sort of a distributed environment, you can do that through using Nagios Fusion. As I mentioned, Fusion has a unified login, particularly with XI. You log into Fusion, it logs you into a session for all of your XI servers. It does aggregate the data across all of your machines, and there's several different visualizations as well, which becomes important the larger your environment gets. The more and more data you get, viewing it all in one place, you need to somehow summarize it or visualize it. Or aggregate it somehow in order to see it in a readable fashion. And that way, from there, you can drill down and see what you need. As I mentioned, it works for Core and Nagios XI. And part of the goal of Nagios Fusion is to simplify the not-so-simple process of distributed monitoring. There's several different models that can be used for how you do distributed monitoring with Nagios. This tries to present a very simple, straightforward solution for distributed monitoring, and tries to ease the learning curve for that a little bit. And it's a little bit different model than, say, maybe distributing your checks using DNX or ModGearman or some of the other models out there. It basically is it's a central viewing model. So you've got many servers, you just view aggregations in one place. The other thing that it does to simplify distributed monitoring is that Fusion will work with Nagios XI or Nagios Core right out of the box without any add-ons or extra configurations. So if you already have any kind of Nagios server running, you can basically just tie it right into Fusion. It'll work right out of the box without any additional configurations. And then a key feature we really worked on for 2012 is just user customization. Each user who's in Fusion is potentially going to want to look at something very different than the next person. And so what we did is that in Nagios Fusion 2012, everything is a dashlet, and you can essentially build as many dashboards as you want, put whatever dashlets you want on it, and those are going to be specific per user. So if you've got 20 different Fusion users, they just basically they build their own dashboards and add whatever dashlets they want to see. So whatever items are most important for them to pay attention to. They're going to have the pages set up to see what's relevant to them. So the scope of Nagios Fusion, we wanted to try to define the scope a little bit more as we moved into the 2012 version, and really just kind of maintain that idea of a central viewing dashboard. It is read-only, so Fusion does not do any monitoring of its own. It doesn't do any alerting. And part of that is because Nagios, whether it be Core or XI, is already doing that. It's already, all of that logic is already there, and it's already doing a good job. It's going to do it much better than what Fusion can, so we're not going to try and recreate things that are already on the actual Nagios servers themselves. So the focus of Fusion is read-only, and it's aggregation, visualization, and summarization of your data. And so just kind of gives you high-level viewing. So it doesn't do, for example, like availability reporting, things like that, because both Nagios Core and XI, they already do that. And so we're not doing that level of, say, reporting or alerting or monitoring in Fusion. We're just viewing data. We added quite a few new visualizations and so forth in the 2012 version, so it's a lot more feature-rich than the 2010 version. Now, as I mentioned, we want to try to simplify the idea of distributed monitoring with Nagios Fusion. There's, as I mentioned, there are several different models for distributed monitoring. One I would propose is going to be probably different than a lot of what's out there right now. I think partly because Fusion is moving in a direction that I don't think any other product is really doing the same way right now. And I would just propose a new idea to consider with distributed monitoring, that having more consolidated Nagios instances is not necessarily a bad thing. Depending on how you want to break it up, you can have a separate Nagios server by geographic location or even by team. So for example, you could even have, let's say you've got a very large environment with several different teams that all need to use Nagios. With Fusion, there would be nothing stopping you from having one Nagios server is dedicated to the database team, another Nagios server dedicated to the network or like the infrastructure team for switches, routers, things like that. And you can have a server by team or by building, by location, whatever you need to do. We actually include a Fusion license if when people purchase a site-wide Nagios XI license, to where they need to have numerous installs of XI. We actually ship Fusion with that. We just include it for free with a site-wide license, so that people can have as many XI installs as they want to have, and then they can just tie it all together with Fusion and manage it from one place. And so, I would argue that being a developer myself, I love to compartmentalize things and have just a nice clear scope of different things. So if you can set up your environment where you would have just a clear defined scope of a Nagios server, whether it be, this Nagios server is responsible for monitoring everything inside of this particular building, or say this particular aspect of the network, whether it be databases or switches and so forth. You can compartmentalize it, and then that way, let's say, and you can even assign your teams differently too. So you could say, all right, database team, you are in charge of the database Nagios server. So if you need to add new things, you add it to that server, you do what you need to do, you set up your alerting on that server. And it gets a little bit into personnel management as well, but again, it compartmentalizes it. So that way, for example, the database team, they're not going to mess anything up for the switch and router team or something like that. You can compartmentalize it that way. And this is a little bit different method than what most people are doing right now, but I would propose it would also be, depending on your environment, for some people this could actually work really, really well. And so you could localize it and just have a defined scope for each one of your Nagios servers and then tie them all together with Fusion. Another advantage of this is that if you've got them compartmentalized, if one server is down or is having a problem, that's not messing up monitoring for everybody else in your infrastructure. And this does just simplify and clarify a scope, whether it be, even one server being in charge of a host group or service group. If those groups are very large, you could do it that way as well. And I would also propose with this method you're not actually using